What's up, everybody? Welcome. It's Dr. Nicole. Welcome to our Thursday night chats, the Boundaries to Bliss Lounge, where we have empowered chats for women just like you. Elevate your life, elevate yourself, and just relax and chill out and talk about issues that are important to us. So, how are you doing, ladies? It's good to see you every Thursday night here, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I try to make sure I put the announcement out, so hopefully you were able to see it. So I have such an exciting topic for tonight. I just want to check in with you though. How are you doing? What kind of week has it been? This is why I've chosen Thursday nights. It's like I was telling my kids, once you pass Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is hump day, Thursday, you're kind of easing into things. And so Thursdays tend to be really relaxed for us in our home and around here. So it's a good time to just relax, chill, and reflect on some things. So the last few weeks, I haven't been as well. Last week we were here. Ramadan had ended. The week before, I took a break, and the weeks prior to that, we were still in Ramadan. So I got my nice little cup from the cruise that I went on, and I did a live. I hope you guys remember that from the cruise, but we were on the Norwegian Joy, so I got my little souvenir. So let's just relax and chill out and talk about how you are doing. What's going on for you? I always like to start with like something fun or exciting that happened for you this week. But I do have a bit of sad news. It wasn't something fun, but something significant that happened for me and my family this week. So we had to put our beautiful little cat, Olivia, down yesterday. She has been with our family for almost 10 years. So we've had her since she was a little itty bitty thing. And she's just grown with us. I call her, she was my office companion. Like ever since I really started being at home, working from home, seeing clients and doing everything from home, she's been right here with me. Like if I would close the door, she would just be at the door scratching, trying to get in. I just ended up watching a documentary learning how in tune with us cats can be. I know we say dogs are man's best friend, but cats are really in tune with us. And so that really developed like since COVID, she and I in particular had a pretty close bond. And so it was pretty sad. She wasn't that old. I guess she was considered like midlife for a cat. But I want to say about 3 months ago, we noticed some changes in her. She was bleeding from her nose. We took her to the doctor, but they didn't see anything. And then it just started to escalate. So we finally went to a different animal hospital, a different, veterinary hospital. And they told us, I want to say that was in March, that she had a tumor. So she had cancer growing in like the nasal area, and it wasn't, it was nothing they could do. We could treat the pain and discomfort and some of the inflammation, but at some point the inevitable would happen. And so she had been getting worse. Sometimes she would, she was trying. She still spent time in my office. She still spent time like at night in the kids' room. She had her little routine, right? But over the past, I want to say 4 to 5 days, she had just started declining so much. It was so sad to see. Like you could see the area where the tumor was growing, and you could also see where the oops, sorry, I just want to turn this down. You could also see where her energy was going down. She wasn't really eating. She wasn't, doing her normal activity. She would try, but she would literally, like, I have a little sofa over there. She would just sit on that sofa all day. She wouldn't move a lot. She wasn't really eating. And so the last time that we took her to the vet, just to check, they had her on steroids, for the inflammation, but they were like, they gave us all of this material to read about when is it time to euthanize your cat, like how that, or your animal, how that is a more like, just a kinder thing to do because they just live in the present. They just know if they're in pain or not. They're not anticipating or worrying about the future. So, really, you want to make sure they're presently comfortable. And when their quality of life starts going down, then you need to think about, putting them to sleep. So it was really comforting to read that. And I was like, man, like veterinary medicine is just so compassionate. I was gonna say humane, but it's like it's so compassionate. And I was like, man, I wish every human being had access to the kind of care that a lot of animals have access to. It's just they treated us so well, so compassionate, so supportive. They were talking about like just in the readings and me talking to the doctor, like this is this is a way that you honor her, is you take her out of her pain when her quality of life goes down. So we did it. We said our goodbyes yesterday. It was so sad. And then I just took her myself. I had called already and told them I would be coming. They had a room ready. A tech came in. They'll give you a printout of her paw prints or copies of it. They have like water, chocolates. It's just, they're really comforting. So that was actually a positive experience. Now, today was so weird because every time I would look around, like her litter box is still down there, her little bed is right over there, all her little stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just would like turn around and expect to see her. So that was kind of sad. Um, but you know what? I was telling my kids it's part of life. It is part of life. We have been lucky to have her with us for 10 years, and we have so many great memories and all the things. And she kept us mouse free for all these years because, when you have a big house, like you can, well, all houses, you can just attract rodents, but, we didn't have that problem. And we just had a good time with her. Like, she was a great, great cat. She was so sweet. So, yeah, that was what happened today. But like I said, it was sad, but it was also positive the way we were treated and the way it was handled. Okay. So let me know. Tell me in the chat like what happened with you this week. It could be good, it could be significant, substantial. Like let me know how things are going for you this week. Okay. Another thing, and it relates to what we're going to talk about today, because I said today we are going deep on this phenomenon that I see beyond the job when identity, purpose, and career collide. So this week, and like towards the end of last week and this week, I had some deep conversations with several different people, like a former professor of mine, my mom, a few family members, a few friends, and I really started to see what is happening with so many of our black women and women in general, but particularly our black women, our other women of color, is this emotional fallout from being pushed out of a job that you gave your all to, right? Let me say that again. The emotional fallout from a from being pushed out of a job that you gave your all to. And we often talk about like the differences in generations as far as you know the previous generation, the older generations, they had an experience where you had loyalty to a job. Like there was even something called a pension, or you would get an entry level position and you could work your way up. But there was this idea of almost like a mutual loyalty. You stay at a place, they take care of you, you commit to them. And that broke down, just like I want to say like in the starting in the 80s and the 90s. Definitely Gen Z is known for job hopping and not making the job the center of their identity. Now, I still would say like in every generation there's a subset of like really really high achievers where their job and their identity just coincide. And I was talking to someone today about how, for a lot of people, achievement, like high achievement, is an expression of them trying to heal their childhood wounds. Okay. So it already puts you in a vulnerable position. But some of the older generations, that was the thing. It was like, okay, you are totally committed to this job. You are in it to win it. And, nothing can stop you from that loyalty. But that started to change, I want to say like 30 plus years ago, and to where we are now, where job hopping is not even seen as a negative thing. At there was a time where it was seen like, okay, you can't stay somewhere for more than 2 years. What's going on? Now that was my case. I was always moving around because I was always wanting to be aligned, like especially early in my career. Um, but so now it's a little more acceptable. But outside of whether it's acceptable or not for, from an employment perspective, for a lot of women, high achieving Black women, it is, whether it's you stay at one job or not, the career becomes such a part of your purpose and your identity. Now, there's nothing, it's not good or bad. It is what it is, right? There's not anything inherently wrong with that. Because let's face it, to build a career or be in a specific profession, what we're told is like the upward mobility and so forth. We you have to commit to it, right? And it takes on a certain importance. But what happens is women, Black women in particular, we tend to give our all to things. And sometimes, a lot of times, to our detriment. And we will give our all. We will nurture, we will pour into, we will give the most, we will have integrity, but we will also expect integrity. And a lot of times we do that in institutions, organizations, situations that don't reciprocate. So that leads to a level of somehow being depleted, exhausted, not appreciated, right? And you give your all, and there's a huge emotional fallout. So, like I said, I've been talking to so many people, especially recently. Um, and I'm just pulling up some of the notes of what I wrote about it. But I've been talking with so many women recently where there's always a point in an institution or an organization where things change, where it doesn't matter how loyal you have been. It could be due to a change in leadership. It could be due to, just changes in society that make the institution have to change. It could be due to reorganization. It could be due to ageism. Like sometimes if the older you get, they want you out. It could be due to you're too experienced and you price yourself out. They don't want to pay you, right? It could be due to so many different factors, but the fact remains that we're in an age where the more loyal you are, the more at risk you are for being pushed out of a place. And here's the thing, a place that you gave your all to. And therefore, there's a huge emotional toll that it takes on you. It can almost feel like, if you've been at a workplace 10, 15, 20 years and you're pushed out unceremoniously or in a way that you didn't, like, you feel like the rug was pulled from under you, it can also almost feel like a divorce from a 15, 20-year relationship. And that's because for those high achieving, purpose driven women, it takes on so much of their life and their identity and their purpose, right? Tell me in the chat, does this resonate? Do you know anybody like this? I was telling my mom, I grew up, or like as I was like, going to school, my academic mentors, some of my professional mentors, I would see so many Black women, brilliant Black women who didn't have the time or space to take care of themselves, who didn't really have a relationship, may have kids, or maybe the kids were grown, or maybe they didn't have kids, didn't, it was like work and then their religious institution. Like those were the two things. So for a lot of the Christian women, it was like work and church, right? And I remember, I have vivid pictures of certain mentors where you would go in their office and they were considered like so and so. She's so dedicated to, whatever workplace it was. For example, I worked at one hospital. She's so dedicated to this hospital. She has trained people. She has mentored people. She has done this, this, and this. But yet she's burnt out. That's when I first started getting interested in burnout. And that's why I teach on it now. But this started years ago because you would see women who were put on a pedestal or touted as having done so much for this organization, but then they're burnt out. They don't have time for themselves. They're overworked and a lot of times taken for granted, underappreciated. And so, in my little mind, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm doing the calculations. Like, it's almost like I have my mental calculator open and I'm like, this is not for me. No, because it doesn't seem reciprocal. And I think just by nature of what they are institutions, right? They're not living beings. They're definitely like dynamic. They change, leadership changes, purpose, mission can change, but they're not people, even though they're made up of people. So sometimes we will give our all to a place, but then we're not treated in that same way because that place can sometimes be made up of all different kind of agendas and different people with different viewpoints and so forth. So my point is a lot of times what I've seen is we can be married to the job, married to the profession, married to the institution, but that job, that profession, that institution doesn't marry us back, right? It's like a one-sided relationship. You hear me? Let me know if you are you catching it? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Do you understand, right? It can really be a situation where you can give your all and then you can eventually be pushed out. You could be pushed out, and it could be a whole range of reasons. It could be very it could be from like malicious to more benign. It could be like that person is targeting you, you got on somebody's bad side or whatever, and they want you out. Or it could be less personal like that, and it could just be like things are changing. We are reorganizing. We got this big leader, at the top, whereas before the leader at the top really understood your purpose and your role in the organization, but now they don't, right? So it's not always like this personal targeted thing, but a lot of times it just is what it is, right? That's why I kind of have been talking more about this recently, but it's been like for a long time, I told myself that I was always going to diversify. You get what I'm saying, right? Who knows that term diversify, right? So if you invest, and y'all know I love talking about investing, you are told to diversify your portfolio. You're not supposed to take all of your money and put and just buy a whole bunch of one stock or be all in one sector or just one type of company, right? You're supposed to diversify because look what's happened now, right? The stock market is all over the place. So much is going on in the country, the global economy, and it's really scary. But those who feel the least amount of panic are those who have diversified, those who have some growth stocks or some dividend stocks, some bigger companies, some smaller companies, different sectors, tech, but then, maybe industrial. Like I'm using terms, but the whole point is you want to diversify. You get some bonds, you get some stocks, right? You might hold some cash. So you don't want to put a simpler way to say it is you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, right? You do not want to put all your eggs in one basket. And what happens though is for a lot of us, we don't diversify. We put all of our identity eggs, our purpose eggs, our, how we are worth eggs into this one thing. Either it's the title, it's the institution, it's the organization. And we have to be able to understand time and place. Sometimes there's a time and a place where we gave it our all and that was awesome. But we have to be willing that if it's no longer serving us, or if that place that we are feels that it's no longer aligned, we have to be okay with moving on and not holding on to what it no longer is, right? So it's the diversifying part that is so key. And let me tell you how this is affecting people, right? This is something that I went through with my mom, I want to say about 10 years ago. She was an executive director at a really important organization that was nonprofit doing a lot of great work. And leadership changed, things happened, and she was essentially pushed out unjustly, and the emotional toll it took on her. I kind of knew then, and I was there and we talked, but I didn't really understand until more recently, like recently now, the toll it took on her. And she ended up she had alopecia. And we know alopecia, a lot of Black women have it. A big part of it is emotional. And like your hair, your scalp, that is the most sensitive to your emotional state. So she lost her hair. She lost her hair. And it's not just her, countless other women have lost their health. They've lost their emotional well being. They've lost their ability to be in a state of balance, inner balance, because these places have taken such a toll on them. And so, as I just observed these things kind of more subtly back then, but, as I grew and became more aware, some of it was unconscious, but some of it was conscious. I said, I will always diversify. I will diversify my identity, my self worth, my sense of who I am is not going to be tied to one thing. As some people, you could call it the Sagittarius in me. Like we're always kind of like so open to different things. But I said, like, I'm an author and I'm a podcast host and I have a family and I have a life, I have hobbies. If all of this were to just go down, but let's just talk about on the career side, right? We should all have a sense of self outside of any profession, right? Um, but like even within your career, this is why a lot of people are talking about you have to build your own personal brand. You have to build a legacy and we have not just a legacy, but you have to work on building a platform or things that you can draw on that are outside of a specific organization, institution, or entity. You have to build yourself outside of things that can control you, right? Because we know we don't have control. And a lot of these places will just as easily like ball you up and spit you out and tell you to go about your way. And God forbid you pass away, you die. Like they will be cleaning out your office with the quickness and somebody else will be put right in, right? So that's why I call this part um the I call it the emotional awakening. The emotional awakening. So important, right? Because part of what happens is when um when you're in a state, an awakening, it assumes that there's you're in a state of sleep or not being fully aware, not being fully awake. And that for a lot of women, a lot of the high achieving Black women that I've worked with, it was the whole thing of doing everything right, walking the line, being the good girl, right? And the expectation is that, like, in a just situation, you're going to be rewarded for that. But as we know, that doesn't always take place. Sometimes, a lot of times you will be in situations where people will act unjustly towards you. And so you have to be able to disconnect and disentangle your identity and your value and your worth and how you feel about yourself and your ability to bounce back and be resilient and not get caught up in these people. You have to separate all of that out from, uh, I would say, not just the institutions, but like how other people will behave unjustly, because that's a huge thing. I'm working with so many people who are like, a lot of my coaching clients and people I'm working with, they are in toxic work situations. Very toxic. I mean, I don't know if people are just talking about it more or if the American workplace has become more toxic, but it is definitely a phenomenon. And it's heartbreaking because people will have poured their heart and their soul, their time, their energy, years, their intellect, their emotions into their profession, only to be in places where suddenly they're pushed out or they're treated like they're nothing, or it becomes this toxic, burnout, overworking, underappreciated environment, right? So if this is something that you're experiencing, you're not alone. Unfortunately, it is happening to a lot of women. So part of what we have to do is reclaim. We have to diversify. We have to reclaim our our power, our financial power, our professional power, our brand power, right? Like creating, what are you creating that's outside of something that you, for the most part, control, right? What are you creating? This is my platform. It can't be, yes, it is on, for example, the sites, whether it's YouTube or whatever, any other platform. But I could take it and I could take all my videos and put them on my website, right? Like, you have to begin to think about how you want to create your legacy outside of others who can control it, right? So that's on the professional side. So we got to diversify. We have to take back our power. The other thing that we have to do is be okay with divesting some and pouring back into our relationships. My platform, it's about helping us to build healthy relationships. We have to be okay pouring back into them, because I can tell you, I have talked to many a woman who has told me that, um, the career, the profession, the accolades, the certificates, the degrees, they don't they don't console you. They don't give you that human warmth. They're fulfilling, but there's a part that they will never fulfill, right? And I was listening to some people talk about how they're talking about research that shows that the people that benefit the most from uh, marriage are men. The married men have the highest health outcomes, blah, 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 but not, supposedly not married women, but that single childless women have the highest health outcomes of women. And it's because presumably the idea is like they're not overgiving, they're prioritizing their health, their well being, and so forth. But there's a lot that doesn't take into account. Have they asked over time about their emotional happiness, whether or not, they're feeling lonely, or because there is a loneliness epidemic. So there's a lot outside the health indices. But the other thing is, I have observed that even among single, childless Black women, they still have a difficult time prioritizing themselves, making sure their health is on point, making sure their lifestyle supports balance, because in place of the marriage and the kids is the job, the career, the overworking, the filling in the void with all of those things. So it still ends up, it's like, okay, six in one hand, a half a dozen in the other. It still ends up a way that you lose yourself. So it's not about whether you're married or you have kids. That's not the determining factor. The determining factor is how can you learn to reclaim yourself, reclaim your identity, diversify, not put your worth all in one thing, and really start to determine for you what is important, what is your measure of success outside of what everybody has told you, and how adaptable do you have a growth mindset? How adaptable are you? Right? Because what fed your worth and gave you fulfillment in one decade of your life might completely change in a different decade. So you have to be able to pivot, you have to be flexible, you have to be nimble, you have to be able to shift a little bit because it's not always going to stay the same, right? But you guys tell me what you think. How have you experienced um, your self worth, your identity, those parts of yourself that you pour maybe so much into? How have you experienced those things shifting? Have you tried to diversify so that you're not left holding the emotional baggage once somebody says, you know what, we don't need you anymore? Oh, well, thank you for your 20, your 30 years, but go on about your way, right? You want to be able to protect yourself the same way that we're talking about people protecting their financial investments. You have to protect your emotional investments, your identity investments, and the way that you manage your career so that you are not left holding the emotional fallout, right? So what do you guys think? Tell me what you think. Is this something that you is this something that you have experienced? Do you see yourself falling down into that trap of giving, giving, giving to something that isn't necessarily reciprocating or, giving back to you? And if you recognize this in yourself, it's okay. That's an important step, is the awareness. That means it's time to make a shift. It's like if you had money in the stock market and you weren't looking at diversifying, it's okay. It's just time to do it now. The same with this, right? What are your hobbies? What is your relationship status? What do you want? How can you even build your own platform and pour into what you produce, what you create, so that you have more freedom, including financial freedom, right? So tell me in the comments in the chat, what have you experienced? How have you tried to diversify? And what do you need help with, right? I put out a post today talking about this and inviting everybody to my next masterclass. Let me tell you what the date is, but my masterclass is Banish Burnout and Build Bliss, because I believe as high achieving Black women, we deserve the bliss, not just the work and the titles and, just being seen as strong, but we deserve the softness. We deserve the bliss, the happiness, the joy, and all of that. Okay, so I'm going to put the link for that upcoming Banish Burnout and Build Bliss workshop in the notes here. It is going to be on May the 4th. Okay, May 4th. So that's coming up real soon. You will love it. We're going to talk about helping you to diversify and really tap into your joy and your bliss so that your whole sense of identity and self worth is not caught up. Um, it's not that it shouldn't be caught up, right? But it should be your identity needs to be diversified, not just in the profession or in the career or in the institution that you have been loyal to. Okay? I would love to see you all there. It's going to be amazing. I love running this workshop, and I think it's more timely now than ever. Okay. So you tell me what's going on with you. Tell me where you need help, where you have made progress with diversifying and not making everything in career the center of everything, but having more balance for yourself. And when I say career, I mean even the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs sometimes are notorious for not having balance, right? Or you pour everything into that idea, but then you need to be able to be resilient when you fail, because every entrepreneur is going to have a period of failure, right? The failure just makes you better, but you have to know how to not have your whole sense of self wrapped up into that one thing. Okay? All right, you guys, I'm so glad that you all joined this live. Remember, it's every Thursday, 8 p.m., YouTube. A lot of times I also go live on Instagram, and we're going to continue this discussion. Today was about the emotional fallout. Next week, I'm going to dig more into the stories that I've heard. And don't worry, we are going to talk about how do you get yourself to a better place with this. Okay? All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining. This is the Boundaries to Bliss Lounge, your place for empowered chats, tips, and everything you need